Well, isn't this fantastic? Liz, thank you so much for those wonderful words. She's so fabulous. She really is. She's a living landmark, a living landmark. My God, I'm so happy to be here. This is one of my favorite organizations. I came a long, long time ago to one of these events, and I never forgot it. It was so moving to think that this organization gives the gift of reading to people who can't read or write. I mean, if I had to live in a world without books, I don't think I could survive. Books are so magical, really, truly the magic carpet. This book is called A View from Abroad. It's the second time it was printed. I insisted on it. I'm so goddamn vain. I'm going to read to you from the introduction, which is actually brand new, and then, and I don't think I'll read any more than that, although it is hilarious, if I do say so myself. I can't believe there are authors here. I met Gary. Hi, honey. I was so thrilled. My first real author. All right. Long, long ago, around 1980, through a veil of hot, briny tears, I seem to recall that I toured the world with my show for the very first time and lived to tell. This book is the book that came out of that tour. I was 35 years old, cute as a button, and excited beyond belief. I was going to see the world, and the world was going to see me. I knew so little of the world. Slander, not geography, had always been my strong suit. And there was more than a grain of truth to that. I was clueless. My international travel was limited to an earlier trip to Paris, where I was surrounded by school children who shrieked and made fun of my shoes. A most humbling experience. We were a motley crew, a quarrelsome band that murdered the time, 3 libidinous girl singers, and many, many attractive sound men, stagehands, road managers, drivers, and fans. It was a powder keg, to put it mildly. Add in new and various faces and races that wanted to be our best friends every third day, new drugs to try, new bars to visit, and you can imagine how hard it was to keep chaos at bay. One of the things that surprised me most was that the world knew me, and they seemed to love me and showered me with affection at every stop. Bouquets, gifts, letters, notes, telegrams, confetti, invitations, and standing ovations. It was a whirlwind, a mob scene. I was at the center of it, and it was hard to separate the best intentions from the worst. And the shows were great, some of the best of my life. I am a reader, and have been my whole life. I love books, and I love all the romance associated with them, the bindings, the illustrations, N.C. Wyeth, Maxfield Parrish, Jessie Wilcox Smith et al., very 19th century, n'est-ce pas? The dreadful lives all those authors lived, being paid by the word, too tragic. Those green eye shades, fabulous. I even adore editors. How marvelous to be squirreled away in some dank corner, spinning literary dross into gold. I had decided I wanted to do a book before we started rehearsals. And lo and behold, the publishers were lined up in droves. What clout I had in those days. My best friend Jerry and his boyfriend Sean, not his real name, which was Wesley, don't ask, searched maps and guidebooks to decide where we would shoot pictures to accompany whatever was to come. We did many by the seat of our pants photo shoots when abroad, and though most of the photos never made the book, I remember many of the charming, out-of-the-way places we found. The taxidermy store in Paris, the convent outside Munich, musty old London bookstalls. Well, things happened. There were fistfights, fires, accidents, arrests, screaming matches, phones thrown at old friends, and way too much press to face day after day, bruises and all. It was not a pretty picture. Couples paired off or didn't. One couple married after that tour and is still married. A driver I adored got sick and died not long after we left. The challenge was to make it amusing. And when I finally got home, I found that a lot of it was, but a lot of it wasn't. And I finally had to face it. After this tour, I knew that certain things were not for me and that I had to make a choice Could I continue to make a joyful noise when I was angry, ill, and hungover? Some can, but I couldn't. My manager and I broke up after a series of violent fights, and I had to live without the kind of support I had had for more than 10 years. It's not an exaggeration to say this tour changed my life. So this book was a kind of a last hurrah. When I read it, I hear a disarmingly younger, sweeter voice, a character I adore, but whom I don't hear from much anymore. I loved her, and indeed, I mourn her from time to time. By 1980, the 60s were finally over. The cloud of AIDS, HIV/AIDS, was about to descend on the blue sky world I lived in, taking with it a whole generation of artists, performers, and friends. Including Jerry and Sean. I'm not sure that this little confection captures a whole lifetime, but I think is an accurate picture of the spirit and the tone of what I was doing in those days. I hope it holds up and that you find your best younger self in it, as I do.